everybody. Welcome back to the Routine Podcast.
Gymnastics Conversations.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Chelsea's mom, Diana.
And we're back for episode 63. This is the last episode of the summer series.
This episode's a little different in that somebody asked to interview us.
Are we like famous now?
Are we popular?
Yeah, so there's just been a lot of behind the scenes things that we're taking care of.
But it's been fun things, right? It's been things that help the podcast move forward in the direction that we wanted to move.
Right. So we've been just planning for the future a lot, which you all will see.
We're getting our preseason stuff ready. We're already figuring out where we're going to travel.
Fingers crossed, maybe an update to the website.
That's true. That's on your end. I completely forgot about that because that's on your side of the house. I'm thinking about the travel because that's on my side of the house. So anyhow, I know we jumped subjects, but bottom line is we've been doing lots of things for the future of the podcast.
But before we jump into today's episode, let's just look back at some of the tweets we got from our last episode where we interviewed Randy Lane and Robin McGee about the Collegiate Gymnastics Growth Initiative. For those who didn't get the chance to listen, do you want to share what the Collegiate Gymnastics Growth Initiative is?
Sure. It was a brainchild of Randy Lane, the former UCLA coach, and he and other coaches have been getting together and looking at how we can grow the sport of gymnastics at additional colleges and universities throughout the country. Specifically, one of the areas they want to look at growing gymnastics is at historically black colleges. And that's where Robin McGee came in. And Robin is a new coach at the University of Wisconsin in La Crosse.
And the first tweet we got was from AB Gym. And she said, "I never realized how genuinely passionate Randy is about gymnastics and the growth of the sport. Excellent interviews, both Randy and Robin. Both are doing amazing work."
And we have another tweet. This one's actually from Dave Pendries. And he says, "Fascinating discussion and equally important is Robin McGee's efforts at HBCUs. Also, a discussion of a lot going on in NCAA and a question about just how much to spend on the locker room." And that one, of course, was the story that we had about LSU and their new locker room, which I'm not sure we should call it a locker room, but I guess that's what they're calling it. Maybe it's a capital L, capital R locker room that they have for the football team.
And he actually went on to email us saying, "I appreciate Chelsea pointing out the need to pay athletes rather than build things like sleeping pods. It would also be great if donations went to the people rather than the extra fancy facilities. Though, of course, facilities do have to be at a level that can support the program's success." And then in parentheses he wrote, which I think was kind of funny, "Side note, I'm sure it would have been ideal that Chelsea's school," which was Southern Connecticut State University, "for the apparatus to all be in the same location for practice, but that doesn't seem like a luxury."
I think when you start getting beyond Division I schools, some of those things are a luxury, right?
You have no idea how many times during the cold Connecticut winters, my teammates and I wished that all of the events were in one gym. For those of you who don't know, and I think my school was pretty unique in this, but our vault and floor was in a different location than our bars and beam. So for practice every day, we would start out in one gym for bars and beam. And then when it was time to do floor or vault, we would all migrate literally across campus, like two opposite sides of campus. And for those of us who didn't have a car, we had to walk that distance.
And you know, I obviously, daughter, feeling sorry for you, but it really, as you were telling this story, it felt like, and we had to walk to school in the snow 10
but
miles
it's true.
uphill.
Like, I'm not even trying to like this is literally facts. This is what happened.
Because at the end of the day, there wasn't the money to fund the gymnastics program.
Right.
And we were very happy that they had gymnastics at the school. And so I think that's really kind of the point of that episode and the point of that discussion, which is about the funding of athletic programs and how that whole thing works.
Yeah. And then we also got a tweet, which I think was really interesting. A couple of episodes back, we actually started a conversation about pay. And it started by KJ Kindler getting a raise. And we got a tweet from Shell, and she said, "I'm finally catching up on podcasts. Regards to the coaching salary and comparing sports, I would like to see the salary comparison between Oklahoma men's gym coach and the Oklahoma women's gym coach." And then a couple of days later, at NCAA Gym Stats actually tweeted a nice color-coded spreadsheet of the salaries of the different gymnastics coaches from public universities.
Did they?
Which is so cool.
So, drum roll, when you look at Oklahoma's women's coach, KJ Kindler, her salary is $370,000 a year. When you look at Coach Mark Williams, his salary is $352,400. $17,000 difference. We can go to Michigan, Coach Bev Plocky, and Bev makes $257,000 a year, as compared to the men's gymnastics coach, Kurt Golder, who makes $134,900, which is a $122,000 difference.
It's actually pretty interesting.
And not surprising to me, because we're comparing women's gymnastics to men's gymnastics. And I think from a fan base perspective, they probably are pretty different, is my guess.
Out of all of the schools listed, only 2 of the universities pay the men's head coaches more than the women's head coaches.
Those 2 schools are Ohio State and Air Force.
It's actually, that's kind of surprising. Like, if I were to say that before I saw this list, I probably wouldn't have thought that.
We're back to, what do we compare? Do we want to compare sport to sport? Is that the fair comparison? I don't know. I mean, that's why we talk about it on every episode this summer, because it's really, what do you look at to determine what's equal? So very interesting. I don't know if we'll talk about it again, but I'm guessing we probably will.
It's like what people say, if you want change, you got to talk about it. You can't just keep hush-hush about it. So thank you all for your tweets over the summer series. I feel like we've gotten a lot of great tweets over the past couple of months, and we've gained a lot of new listeners along the way.
I think this summer we had a lot of great guests, very diverse thoughts, very diverse opinions, and really interesting information. So I really have enjoyed our summer series this year.
So moving into our new segment, which, how long can I say it's new before it's not new anymore?
I know. But, go for it. You get really excited by this.
It's now titled News You Can Use. So for those of you who live under a rock, Simone Biles made history twice this past weekend.
Well, actually, Simone Biles has made history her whole career.
Yeah, you're right. But she made even more history this past weekend. First, she attempted the triple-double on floor, and she fell, which I think, is okay. She still did it. And then she moved on to beam, and that's where she did the double-double dismount. And it was amazing. She's like, right? And the thing is, for me, I understand what she's doing is incredible. She makes everything look so easy that you forget how hard it actually is.
I agree with that. Because I watched Simone, and then I have to ask you, what did she just do?
And I was actually talking to my coworker today about it, and us gym nerds know whenever you're talking to common folk about gymnastics, you kind of have to bring down your excitement so you don't seem too nerdy. But she's like, "Did you watch Simone? How incredible was it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was pretty good." And she's like, "Yeah, I didn't know what I was watching, but it was just a whole bunch of flipping and twisting." And I was like, as long as you recognize that what she's doing is really hard, that's all that matters.
It's so true. Because even me, right? I don't know if you'd call me common folk or not. I know a little bit more.
No, you're a little bit more advanced.
I just don't know how difficult it is, other than you school me that this is really hard.
Yeah. So in the second day, she did the triple double again on floor, and she made it. It was fantastic. So she had quite the weekend, of course, as expected, but maybe not as expected, at least not for me. The person who stood out to me and like I was just in awe of was Suni Lee. She actually got second, and this is her first time competing as a senior this year. So incredible for her. And like I feel like I'm almost kind of like a little bit embarrassed at how late I am on the Suni train.
As long as you get on the train, Chelsea.
I know, yeah. She is like just such a beautiful gymnast, and she has the skills with it. So I just don't know how the Olympic team I do not envy Tom and his decision at all.
No, I don't either. And I think for me, when I watch, it's just such a contrast for me watching these elite athletes, the best in the world. And when I watch NCAA gymnastics, and they're the best in the world too, right? And we're just so blessed with just this amazing talent in this sport.
Agreed. And speaking of NCAA gymnast in elite, Trinity Thomas had herself quite a weekend as well.
She did.
And I'm just like, whenever like I see Trinity, I just get so happy for her. And she actually competed the biles on floor the first day, and she made it like amazingly. And then Mom, like your heart would have melted if you saw it after her floor routine. She jumped off the floor and ran over to Jenny, and they had this like huge hug.
Oh, Chelsea, really?
Yeah, it was really nice. I don't know. I just feel like Trinity has really grown, even though it's been like not even like 6 months since she last competed in NCAA. But I just feel like she's so mature, especially compared to some of the other gymnasts in elite. And I feel like the experience that she's had so far at the University of Florida has really helped her in her elite career.
And I think we're also seeing that with Michaela, right? Those 3 years of college have made her elite career completely different.
Yeah. And speaking of Michaela, she had herself it was just like a great meet. For those of you who watched it, you guys know how amazing that meet was. And Michaela got 8th in the all-around.
I know, right?
Yeah. And she is bringing difficulty. She is just doing so great. And I feel like when speaking about these NCAA gymnasts competing in elite, it's really inspiring, I guess is the word I would use, because so often we're told it's either NCAA or it's elite. And these gymnasts are thriving in both areas of their gymnastics career, and they're having fun with it, which is so cool.
No, I totally agree. And for us, the fact that we've watched them and actually had the chance to interview with them, it really feels as if we know them. And it's really special watching them compete and be successful.
So that was a really great weekend. It was a nice little dose of gymnastics. It's been a while since we've all gathered around the TV and live tweeted about gymnastics. So it was cool to be able to do that again. So that's enough elite gymnastics talk for an NCAA gym podcast.
Yeah, we try not to do a lot of elite gymnastics talk on our podcast.
Mostly because I just feel like I'm not as knowledgeable in that area.
Hey, that has never stopped us before, let me just say.
It hasn't stopped you.
Well, that's true. Let's talk about how much they're paying coaches. Yeah. Let's talk about Title IX.
But we do have to, talk about gymnastics whenever it comes on TV.
So on most of our episodes, we have guests. On this show, we are our own guest.
That's not narcissistic at all.
Let's explain, Chelsea. Let's explain.
Dr. Dave Tilley actually reached out to us to interview us for his podcast, The Shift Show. And Mom and I talked about some things that we've actually never talked about on our own podcast.
We may have touched on it, but nothing as detailed as we did with Dr. Dave.
And he really, as always, went deep.
And made us go deep.
Yeah. And wanted to know kind of about our gymnastics history and how we became who we are today.
We made the decision to air part of the interview in this episode because we actually found it interesting to have somebody ask us questions about the decisions that we made and kind of the successes and the challenges from a mother's point of view and a gymnast's point of view throughout Chelsea's gymnastics career.
And I think what was interesting about this interview in particular is that Mom and I had never really reflected on our experience in gymnastics, especially in the early days of my gymnastics career. Can I say in our gymnastics career? Because I feel like it was your career as much as mine.
I feel as if it was our gymnastics career. But I think what you just said, Chelsea, was really key. And it's not that we hadn't reflected on it at the time, but now that the years have passed, we had not looked back and reflected on it as this kind of several-year look back, right?
And I think that's what made the interview so real and honest.
Well, yeah, I think what we do always is we tell the truth as we see it and as we feel it. I mean, that's who we are. We're genuine in that respect. For me as a parent, if there's information that I can share that other parents will find helpful, that's what I want to do. And I think you feel the same way from a gymnast perspective. On our podcast, we really try to look at everything in a positive light, right? And even when we talk about our experiences, there are parts of it that are painful for us to relive. And we always talk about when Chelsea has children one day, would she put them in gymnastics? And the answer would be,
I don't know. I can't answer that. But it's more towards no than yes at this moment. So
I would agree. I think I don't know is the best answer. I think that I want my son or daughter to have an experience in gymnastics, but if they ever start to get pulled towards the competitive route and like if the gym that we're a part of just has like a really hardcore competitive team, I would be almost in the way unless they were dying to do it. But I don't know at this point until something changes. I feel very strongly that I don't know if I could safely do that and feel good about it as a parent.
Yeah. And as a parent who did it, I wouldn't do it again.
Really?
And I'm not one of those people who really rethink that I should have done things differently.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people, right? I did what I did with the best knowledge I knew at the time, and that's how I live. But when it comes to Chelsea and gymnastics, that's one I really do think, was that the right decision?
I want to give you guys the floor to kind of tell your story and then maybe just hear about your experiences and what you would do differently or what you thought from the athlete and from the parent point of view as things that other young athletes or parents of young athletes can learn from. But unfortunately, the common pattern now is a lot of parents coming into the office with just like so much regret, I want to say. It's just like, why did I allow this to happen? But I don't know your guys' perspective. So I'd like to hear what you guys went through and then also kind of hear, some big speed bumps that you guys had along the way.
Chelsea was probably 5. We took her to a birthday party at the gym. And the birthday girl at the gym got to be in a harness where they, swing the harness back and forth, right? And and she loved it, absolutely loved it. And that's when we said, why don't we start her in gymnastics? So when Chelsea got into the sport, it's like, she's going to be good at this. We're going to, do everything we can that she can be good. We want her on team. You're watching the older girls do all these great things. And you're like, this is what I want for her. This is what I want. And that's how that painful journey started, quite frankly. Things came really easy physically for Chelsea, but mentally not by any stretch. And I'm not kidding. I can't think of a day that she went to gymnastics without crying. Would that be true?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, earlier when I was a lot younger, I don't remember as much. But I think on my part, it was a lot more voluntary. Obviously, I wanted to go to practice every day, but as I kept getting better and it got more competitive, it got harder and harder for me to go.
Were your mental struggles more like fear related? Was it like pressure from your coaches? Was it just like you were just a little bit of a nervous Nelly when you were younger? What was it?
I was just generally anxious just every day. And I think the pressure that I felt from my parents.
Me, it's what she means.
Hey, no judgment here. We're airing it out. We've all made mistakes, me included.
But I think also I felt very intimidated in my environment in the gym every day.
Gotcha.
So it just wasn't very welcoming for my personality type. And I think a lot of people thrive in that like pressure-driven situation, but for me, I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of parents who are like looking at other gyms and looking at other parents or daughters or sons, and they need their daughter to keep up, and they feel that pressure. And so I think that's a big root cause of that, between the parents living vicariously through or the coach. I used to live directly vicariously through my athletes, and I was so worried at competitions about what other coaches thought of me. So was that similar for you? Or was it just, I want my daughter to do the best she can?
It was more that. I definitely didn't live vicariously through Chelsea, but I just knew that she could be great one day, right? It was more that. Same way with my son and academics. I knew that he could go to college and be something one day, right? It was this just way too much focus on the child. And I definitely was one of those parents, right? So when you got into the gym and the parents were sitting there watching through that little bitty window, and, all these girls are doing flips and the older girls are doing their thing and people are getting scholarships. And then I've got a daughter who's like amazingly talented. And the other thing that was really confusing for me is that Chelsea was happiest after gym.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point.
After gym, I did this and I could do that. And, this is what's going to happen. And so then I would get confused, right? Because she was always fearful going, and it definitely was fear. But afterwards, she had the best time in gym today. Being a parent is so hard because there's no manual or book about it. Okay. And I can divide up Chelsea's gymnastics career from obviously when she was like 5 years old to when she became probably a level 8, but maybe even a 7 or 8, to when she became an 8, to what happened afterwards. I was a different parent in those two sections.
I was thinking that too. When you were talking, Mom makes it sound like she was like the big bad wolf.
I was in the beginning.
In the beginning, yeah, she had a lot of bad habits, but...
That was a nice way to say it.
But I think as we both saw life as just like this bigger thing, I think we both kind of relaxed.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Well, and you know what happened? You got hurt. We had surgery. And
what was the catalyst there?
Yeah, she got what was the first surgery? Because she's had a couple.
It
was level 7 states were the next night, and we lived 15 minutes from the gym, and it was like, I don't know, a half hour left in the, before practice ended, night before states, level 7. And Chelsea was doing a souk on vault. And I got the call from the coach that said, I think you better come to the gym tonight. Chelsea's been hurt. And I drove like a crazy woman. And of course, Chelsea's crying, and they tell me I need to take her to the hospital tonight. And at that point, it's probably 9:00 at night. And I'm talking to her coach about what happened. He's like, Chelsea did the souk, and she put her hands down. And that's when she broke
my knuckle.
Yeah, broke her knuckle. And this is what I said, and I'm laughing now at myself. I said, why did she put her hands down? And he said, so she wouldn't hit her face.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And then I said, do you think she can still compete at states tomorrow?
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah. We've all been there. We've all been there.
And then I heard myself say that, and I thought, what the hell, Diana, right?
Yeah.
And that was the change for me.
Yeah, and Chelsea, what was the context around that? Was that just a fluke accident, or was that like something that you quite weren't ready for?
I was never really good at Stooks. And we were going on to hard landings because we were preparing for states the next day. And I guess something just didn't go right. And then I just put my hand directly down, and then I just broke and dislocated my knuckle. And that was my first major injury, which looking back, it wasn't even that major compared to the other injuries that I had.
And so the next day at states, I cried the whole meet.
Because
Really?
I wasn't competing.
Because she wasn't competing. But you're so in it that you're just not cognizant of normalcy anymore. And people can't talk to you. Like, my husband couldn't talk to me. My parents couldn't talk to me. I remember calling my mom crying. She's like, what is wrong with you? Chelsea can't compete, you know? And it's just nuts.
This is definitely a fault of my own too, but I lived around people that were so hardcore, my coaches, my friends, and then I definitely got brainwashed. I was hanging out with coaches that were just push, 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 and I was going to camps, learning from some of the higher up coaches that were push, 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 and I was so blinded by everybody assuming that this is normal and we just do this in gymnastics. This is how it goes. You just train hard. Don't talk about your injuries, especially on the guy side. The guy side is way more stoic and way more don't speak, and nobody ever took their head up and said, like, guys, is this okay? Like, are we okay with this, what we're doing to young kids?
I know for me, as the athlete, I was younger. I didn't know I had a voice. I thought this is just how things go. But I actually met up with one of my old teammates recently, and we both just started talking about the old times and how a lot of things weren't okay. And we didn't know it at that moment because we were in that toxic environment. But I think if you're able to take a step back and look at where you've come from, maybe you can learn from it.
It was really about getting your daughter into a great college at that point. I remember Chelsea and I sitting at this table, actually, and she had just come back from surgery. This was the Achilles tear, or was it the hand, the wrist?
When did those happen? What age were you when those happened?
So my first major injury was my sophomore year in high school, if I'm remembering correctly. And it was an overuse injury. I tore cartilage in my wrist. And what I vividly remember about that is I had the surgery one day, and then 2 days later, I had a recruiting trip out in Utah that I went on.
Let's just say, I thought I was better early.
So that was my first major injury. So at that point, I was on the right track to get that full scholarship. And then I competed a year. And then that following summer, I ended up tearing my Achilles tendon. So
Your senior year?
Yes. So then at that point, I thought I was done with gymnastics because colleges stopped caring. And nobody really wanted anything to do with me at that point. So I still hadn't committed anywhere yet.
Gotcha.
But at that point, that's where I really learned about Division II and Division III, because it was very common in my gym for everyone to go full scholarship Division I. So I wasn't aware that you don't have to go Division I. And I think that's really what saved me. And looking back on it now, I don't think I'm a Division I athlete. I don't think I would have been happy, or even I don't think I would have succeeded in gymnastics at a Division I level. And I think on the podcast, that's what I try and share with everyone, that there are other schools besides the LSUs, the UCLAs, the Alabamas, and you can still have a successful gymnastics career in Division II or Division III, or even a lower level Division I program. So yeah, I ended up going Division II, and I enjoyed my college career. I think that's really the time where I loved gymnastics the most, because I was doing it on my own time. I was coming back from this major injury, and I was really just, again, doing gymnastics for myself.
Yeah, I think, it was after that last injury, when you had the chance to decide whether you continued or didn't, that you found the love of gymnastics.
So I actually was done. I wanted to quit. I didn't want to go to practice anymore, not even through rehab. I just wanted to be done. But mom told me, don't make any major decisions until you're fully healed. So I kept going to the gym. I did conditioning on the side. And it was hard to watch everyone continue to get better as I was stuck in this boot. And it was a really tough injury to come back from. But mom helped me make that decision to keep going for it. Just because other people are saying your gymnastics career is over, just don't come anymore. Mom was really my cheerleader. Yeah.
She had a really, really good doctor, and he recommended that she do ballet lessons to recover.
Yeah. In addition to regular rehab and physical therapy, he also recommended ballet. So really my senior year, it was about getting healthy in the best shape for me and my gymnastics career. At that point, I think mom and I both were just like, who cares what outside people are saying? Like, we're going to do what we need to do to get to the place that we want to be.
Right. It's so true. Once we made that turn where it was about us, everything, even her competing in college and whether she made team or not, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It just, when she fell off the beam or if she had a successful beam routine, it didn't matter. We were there with each other, and it was the sport that she had loved, that she was doing it her way.
I think we're only able to look at this the way that we look at it now because we've been through the hard times. But advice that I would share with gymnasts, and it's something that I struggled with definitely in my gymnastics career, is don't compare yourself to others. Again, with this social media, the way that it is today, it's really easy for you to compare yourself to other gymnasts. But just stay in your lane. You can only control your gymnastics career. So don't worry about what other people are saying or what other people are doing.
Yep. And then we'll end on this one because I definitely do not want to seem like we're bashing coaches because I'm one of them. But what would you guys both recommend for coaches out there that are listening and are maybe having some very aha moments throughout this conversation?
Right. You have them 20 hours a week, right? You have the girls 20 hours a week. You have their parents. You're making decisions that affect people's lives. Yeah. And so just recognize that as you're making those decisions. It's not something that you have to learn it. You have to study it. You have to understand that this, what you're saying and the impact that it has.
Yep. And you and I both are big avid book readers, but some of these things are only taught through experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And just to snowball off that, I think it's so important to really understand each of the athletes' personalities. I think it's important to individualize how you coach each athlete. For one athlete that may thrive under pressure and intense training, for another athlete that might not be the same approach that works for them. I think that's just one step in the right direction because, as we said earlier, it's really kind of how a coach decides to coach their athletes. It can either go one way or the other. And I think, speaking from experience, a lot of the things that I did experience in club, I'll never forget in a bad way, but also in a positive way. I did have a lot of great experiences. So again, I think it's just learning what works best for each athlete. So again, that's just part of the interview with Dave Tilley.
Yeah, I think we ended up talking for about an hour in that discussion.
So if you guys want to hear the full interview, be sure to tune in to Dave Tilley's podcast. It's called The Shift Show, and the episode is now live.
Dave, again, as always, thank you. The only thing, Chelsea, I have to say that I didn't like about the Dave interview, do you know what it was?
Our dog kept barking.
No, I didn't mind that because, of course, it's my dogs and I love my dogs. Although that did get a little annoying. But what I really didn't like, it's video.
Oh, Mom, you got to get over that.
I don't like that part.
The paparazzi are after you.
But Dave, that shows you how much we like you, because I would normally say no to something like that. But Chelsea's like, Mom, you got to do it. You got to do it. And I actually did enjoy doing it.
So I think a great way to wrap up our summer series and to prepare, which is kind of crazy to start saying, but to prepare for the 2020 NCAA women's gymnastics season.
Yeah.
College Gym News is actually doing a series on their website called Where Are They From? And they feature incoming freshmen that are attending different universities. So this past week, they had Michaela Stuckey, and she is attending Eastern Michigan. And the week before, they had Reagan Walker, who is going to Yale. I really just like hearing why they decided to go to their respective university and what their expectations are. Because as a freshman, you don't know what the heck is going on. So I think it will be cool for them whenever they graduate to look back on these interviews that they did.
Sure. And I think this also helps us make our decisions in terms of the freshmen that we interview for preseason as well.
Totally.
So, in speaking of College Gym News, we want you to know that College Gym News is your one-stop shop for all things college gymnastics. For event coverage, leotard rankings, in-depth features, fantasy gymnastics resources, and more, visit collegegymnews.com.
And if you're interested in supporting CGN's expanding coverage, visit collegegymnews.com/donate. College Gym News, all the college gymnastics news you want, all in one place.
So, Chelsea, before folks leave us, we've gotta ask people to complete our survey.
Yes, we have one favor for you all before we wrap up this summer series.
One favor. I'm not even going to talk about voicemails.
So around this time last year, we asked you all to complete the annual routine podcast survey, and it's that time of year again. So we have the link to the routine podcast annual survey on our website. We'll also tweet the link. And if you all could just be open and honest about your opinions and your thoughts and what you want to see from us in the future, that will help us in making some of these decisions that are going on in the background.
I couldn't have said it any better, Chelsea. The significance of the completion of the survey is it really guides and directs us on what we do with our show in the future. So it's incredibly helpful. It doesn't take long. And all those who listen, if you could please complete it, but also feel free to forward it to your friends, forward it to your mother and your father. We always love hearing from parents. But please, if you get the chance to complete the survey, we'd really appreciate it.
Even if you completed the survey last year, we would still like to hear your opinions. If you're new to us, I know we've gained a lot of new listeners. We definitely want to hear from you. Everyone, if you have the chance and you want a pat on the back from us, please complete our survey.
This is like this virtual pat on the back we're giving you right now.
Yeah. So thank you all in advance. That's how I sign off my emails at work when I request something. Thank you in advance. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanking you in advance for your support.
But really, thank you all for your support, especially over these past couple of months. Mom and I have really enjoyed interviewing all of these amazing guests. We've just had a lot of fun this past summer.
Yeah, it's not only been the guests, Chelsea, it's also been the tweets and the responses, like the emails. I mean, folks have really listened to the conversation and been a part of the conversation. And that's what's really been fun about the summer.
And I look forward to continuing it during preseason as well.
And season.
You just talked about season. I'm not kidding. I got butterflies in my stomach. I'm ready for NCAA gym. Woo! We are.
We are.
So again, you all can find the link to our Routine Podcast survey on our Twitter, which is @Routine Podcast. You can also email us at info@theroutinepodcast.com. And we'll also have the link to the survey on our website, which is theroutinepodcast.com. And if you like today's episode or any of our summer series episodes, be sure to rate us on the Apple Podcast app. It really helps us out. And leave us a review. And be sure to subscribe so that you know when we're back for preseason. Bye.
Bye.